Welcome everyone, dear listeners. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our future stories. Now, let's begin our tale. In the fading light of a tangerine sunset, the frontier town of Dusty Ridge appeared like a mirage, shimmering at the edge of the vast, rolling desert. The air was thick with the scent of sagebrush and the faint, metallic tang of the railroad tracks that cut a sinewy line through the heart of the settlement. The small, weathered buildings huddled close together, their wooden facades creaking in the evening breeze, whispering tales of long-forgotten days and dreams yet to be realized. It was in this place, amidst the dust and dreams, that I found myself a sheriff, though not a real one. My badge was a shiny tin star pinned to a vest that had seen better days, its silver sheen catching the dying light and throwing playful glints into the shadows. My name was not important here, for I had fashioned a new identity out of necessity and whimsy, becoming a figure of authority in a town where the law was as fluid as the shifting sands. The townsfolk had welcomed me with wary eyes and cautious nods, their curiosity piqued by the enigmatic newcomer, who spoke with a drawl that was as much an invention as the stories I spun. To them, I was a drifter turned lawman, a savior perhaps in a place that teetered on the brink of chaos. In truth, I was an actor in a grand unscripted play, performing under the wide, watchful sky. The saloon was the heart of Dusty Ridge, a cacophony of laughter, clinking glasses, and the mournful strains of a piano that had known countless fingers and forgotten tunes. I pushed through the swinging doors, my boots echoing on the wooden floors, and surveyed the room with a practiced eye. The patrons were a tapestry of humanity, cowboys and prospectors, gamblers and dreamers, each with stories etched in the lines of their faces. Behind the bar, Molly, the proprietress, polished glasses with a rag that seemed to have absorbed more whiskey than it had ever cleaned. Her eyes met mine with a glint of mischief, a silent acknowledgement of the role I played in this dusty tableau. She was a woman of sharp wit and sharper tongue, an ally in my charade, and perhaps the only one who knew the truth of my deception. "Evening, Sheriff," she greeted, her voice a melody of mock seriousness and genuine warmth. "Keeping the peace, are we?" I tipped my hat, a gesture that had become second nature. "Best I can, Molly. You know how it is." She laughed, a sound like tinkling chimes carried on the wind. "In this town, that's quite the task." As I leaned against the bar, the saloon's energy swirled around me, a tangible force that pulsed with life. The piano player was lost in his music, fingers dancing over the keys as if possessed by some unseen muse. A poker game was in full swing at a corner table, the players cloaked in shadows and smoke, their faces masks of concentration and subtle deceit. But it was the stranger in the farthest corner who caught my attention. A man draped in a long, dark coat, his hat pulled low over his eyes. He sat alone, a solitary figure amidst the throng, nursing a drink and watching the room with an intensity that set my instincts on edge. There was something in the way he held himself, a coiled tension that spoke of secrets and intentions not yet revealed. I made my way over, weaving through the crowd like a ghost slipping between moments. The stranger's gaze met mine as I approached, a flicker of recognition in his eyes before he masked it with a practiced ease. I settled into the chair opposite him, the wood cool against my back, and studied him in the flickering lamplight. "New in town?" I asked, my voice a blend of curiosity and authority, a script I had rehearsed 1,000 times in the mirror of my mind. He took a slow sip of his drink, the silence stretching between us like a taut wire. "Just passing through," he replied, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate in the depths of my chest. "Name's Sheriff," I offered, the title rolling off my tongue with a confidence I didn't feel. "Mind if I ask yours?" He hesitated, the briefest of pauses before responding. "Call me Jack. Jack." A name as common as the dust, yet there was nothing ordinary about the man who wore it. His eyes were dark pools, depths that promised stories untold and mysteries unsolved. I could sense the weight of his gaze, probing, assessing, as if trying to peel back the layers of my own carefully constructed facade. "Well, Jack," I said, leaning back in my chair, "what brings you to Dusty Ridge?" He shrugged, a casual motion that belied the tension in his muscles. "Same as anyone, I suppose. Looking for a fresh start." A fresh start. How often had I uttered those very words? a mantra that had carried me from town to town, from one identity to the next. Yet here, in this place where the horizon stretched endlessly and the past felt like a distant dream, it seemed almost possible. Anything I should know about? I pressed, my tone light but laced with an undercurrent of seriousness. Jack's lips curved into a half smile, a ghost of amusement. Just keeping to myself, Sheriff. No trouble from me. There was a finality in his words, a subtle dismissal that told me our conversation was at an end. But as I stood to leave, I felt the brush of something intangible, a whisper of danger that lingered in the air like the scent of rain before a storm. The night deepened, the saloon's patrons slowly trickling out into the cool embrace of the desert evening. I lingered by the bar, exchanging quiet words with Molly as the world outside settled into a hushed lullaby. The stars emerged, pinpricks of light in the velvet sky, watching over the town with a silent, indifferent gaze. As I stepped out into the night, the chill air wrapped around me, a reminder of the vastness that lay beyond the comforting glow of the saloon. Dusty Ridge slumbered under the watchful eyes of the heavens, a place caught between the past and the promise of tomorrow. And I, the fake sheriff in a town as transient as my own identity, felt the weight of a role I had chosen and the uncertain path that stretched before me. The desert whispered secrets in the wind, tales of old and new, and somewhere in the distance, the howl of a lone coyote echoed, a haunting melody that resonated in the stillness. In the end, perhaps it did not matter who I was or what I pretended to be. For here, in this land of endless horizons and whispered dreams, every soul was a traveler, seeking their own truth, their own story amidst the shifting sands of time. I wandered down the moonlit path, the creak of the wooden boardwalk beneath my boots, a soft accompaniment to the symphony of nighttime sounds. The buildings of Dusty Ridge loomed like watchful sentinels, their shadowy facades etched against the indigo sky. Each structure held its own tale, secrets buried within the weathered bones of timber and stone, waiting patiently to be unraveled by those who dared to listen. The saloon door swung shut behind me, its hinges protesting with a groan, a farewell to the warmth and clamor within. My breath formed misty clouds in the crisp air, a testament to the night's chill and the solitude that lay ahead. The streets, once bustling with the vibrancy of life, had surrendered to the embrace of silence, leaving only the soft whisper of the wind as it wove its way through the narrow alleys. I walked with purpose, though the destination was as nebulous as the identity I wore like a second skin. In the distance, the outline of the jailhouse stood stark against the starlit sky, a beacon of law and order, or the illusion of it. My footfalls echoed in the emptiness, a reminder that even in pretense, the weight of responsibility was palpable. As the self-appointed guardian of Dusty Ridge, my presence was both a comfort and a curiosity, a mirage of authority in a lawless land. The townsfolk, weary travelers and hopeful settlers alike, had accepted my role with a mixture of relief and bemusement, their eyes tracing the badge pinned to my chest as if it held the answers to their unspoken questions. Yet beneath the surface of this charade, a restless energy simmered, a tension that ebbed and flowed like the tide. It was the knowledge that at any moment the fragile facade could crumble, revealing the truth that lay beneath, a truth as elusive as the shifting sands of the desert. As I reached the jailhouse, the creak of the door heralded my arrival. Inside, the dim glow of a lantern cast flickering shadows across the walls, painting the room in shades of amber and gold. The cells stood empty, their iron bars cold and unyielding, a testament to the transient nature of justice in this untamed land. I settled into the chair behind the desk, its wooden frame groaning in protest. The room was sparse, a functional space devoid of the comforts that defined a home. On the desk lay a pile of wanted posters, their edges curling with age, names and faces of outlaws who had long since vanished into the vastness of the frontier. My fingers traced the contours of a particular poster, the inked visage staring back at me with eyes that seemed to hold secrets of their own. It was a face I knew well, the outlaw whose legend had grown with each retelling, a specter that haunted the edges of my consciousness. The stories spoke of their exploits with a mixture of awe and fear, a figure who danced on the knife's edge between myth and reality. To some, they were a hero, a champion of the downtrodden. To others, a villain whose deeds stained the land with blood and betrayal. And somewhere in the tangled web of truth and fiction, I, too, played a part. The lantern flickered, casting a momentary darkness that shivered across the room. In that brief interlude, I imagined the outlaw's eyes meeting mine, a knowing gaze that pierced through the veil of deception. It was a moment of reckoning, a silent acknowledgement of the roles we played in this grand theater of life. But the silence was not destined to last. The night had more to reveal, its secrets woven into the fabric of the shadows. A distant sound, barely a whisper at first, grew in intensity, a rhythmic pounding that resonated through the stillness. Hoofbeats, a reminder that in this land of uncertainty, change was a constant companion. I rose from my seat, the chair scraping against the floor as I moved to the window. The street lay bathed in moonlight, a silver river that flowed through the heart of Dusty Ridge. And there, emerging from the darkness, a rider galloped with purpose, their silhouette framed by the ethereal glow. As the rider drew closer, the features became discernible. A figure cloaked in the dust of the trail, their hat pulled low over their brow. The horse snorted, its breath a plume of steam in the cool night air, as they reined in before the jailhouse, eyes meeting mine with an intensity that spoke of urgency. For a moment, time stood still, the weight of the night pressing in around us. And then, with a voice roughened by the road, the rider spoke. A name, a place, a story that unraveled like a skein of yarn, each thread a clue, a connection to the world beyond the borders of this town. It was a tale of betrayal and redemption, a narrative that mirrored my own journey, yet woven with threads of danger and intrigue. The rider's words painted a picture of a world in flux, where alliances shifted like the desert winds and trust was a commodity as rare as water. With each revelation, the path ahead became clearer, the choices more defined. The desert, with its vast expanse and hidden dangers, beckoned, a siren call that promised both peril and possibility. And in that moment, I understood that the role I played, the facade I wore, was but a stepping stone on a journey that stretched far beyond the borders of Dusty Ridge. As the rider turned to leave, their silhouette melting into the darkness, I felt the stirrings of a new resolve. The night, with its secrets and shadows, had whispered its truth, and I, the fake sheriff in a town of shifting sands, was ready to embrace the unknown. For in this land of endless horizons, where the past and future intertwined like the roots of an ancient tree, every soul was a traveler. And I too had a path to walk, a story to tell, amidst the ever-changing tapestry of the Wild West. The night's embrace seemed to tighten as I stood on the wooden porch of the sheriff's office, the echoes of the rider's hooves fading into the distance. The stars above, scattered like diamonds across a velvet canvas, offered a silent witness to the world below, a world where shadows danced with the moonlight, and the whispers of the desert wind carried secrets untold. Dusty Ridge slumbered under a blanket of tranquility, the kind that only deep night could bestow. Yet, beneath this guise of serenity, a tension simmered, an undercurrent of anticipation that hummed through the air. I could feel it, like the charged stillness before a storm, a presence that seeped into the marrow of my bones, urging me to action. I took a breath, letting the cool night air fill my lungs, and turned back inside the dimly lit office. The flickering lamplight cast long shadows across the room, a dance of light and dark that seemed to mirror my own internal conflict. The desk, cluttered with papers and maps, bore the weight of my responsibilities, both real and imagined. As I sifted through the documents, each page whispered tales of land disputes, cattle rustling, and the occasional petty theft, mundane affairs that belied the deeper currents of unrest beneath the town's surface. In the corner, an old leather-bound journal caught my eye. Its presence was a testament to the sheriffs of old, those who had walked this path before me, leaving behind their thoughts etched in ink. I flipped through its pages, my fingers tracing the faded script, and the stories within unfolded like petals of a long-forgotten flower. Tales of bravery, of betrayal, of moments where courage and cowardice intertwined in the dusty streets of Dusty Ridge. These stories were my inheritance, the legacy of those who had worn the badge before me. But my badge was different, a symbol of pretense rather than authority, a prop in the grand theater of the Wild West. Yet, as I pondered my place in this unfolding drama, I found solace in the words of my predecessors. They reminded me that every journey is marked by uncertainty, that even the truest of heroes must face their doubts and demons. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a distant sound, a low rumble, like thunder rolling across the plains. I froze, listening intently, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. It was a sound that stirred the primal instincts within, a warning carried on the night air. The rumble grew louder, a crescendo of hoofbeats approaching from the north, and with it, the unmistakable dust cloud of riders. I stepped onto the porch once more, my hand instinctively reaching for the revolver at my hip. The moon illuminated the scene before me, casting the approaching riders in an ethereal glow. They rode hard, their figures outlined against the silvered landscape, a dozen strong and determined. As they drew nearer, I recognized the leader, a figure of legend and infamy known throughout the territory. His name was whispered in saloons and around campfires, a man whose reputation was as fierce as the sun-baked land itself. He was the outlaw whose exploits painted him as both villain and folk hero, a man whose presence promised to upend the fragile equilibrium of our town. The riders reined in their horses before the sheriff's office, their breath mingling with the cool night air in ghostly plumes. The leader dismounted, his boots striking the ground with a confidence that sent ripples through the gathered crowd, townsfolk who had emerged from the shadows, drawn by the commotion. "Evening, Sheriff," he greeted, his voice a rich baritone that carried an edge of mockery. "Or should I say, the man playing sheriff?" The crowd murmured, a sea of curious and anxious faces reflecting the tension in the air. I met the outlaw's gaze, his eyes sharp and calculating, a predator assessing its prey. Despite the facade I wore, I felt a flicker of pride, a determination to stand my ground, to play my part in this unfolding story, even if it was but an illusion. "What brings you to Dusty Ridge tonight?" I replied, my voice steady, the words echoing in the stillness. The outlaw chuckled, a sound that seemed to ripple through the onlookers, a reminder of the delicate balance between peace and chaos. "We're here for the same reason as always," he said, gesturing to his companions, "to remind folks that these lands belong to no one man, to remind them of freedom." His words hung in the air, a challenge and a promise entwined. The crowd shifted, a restless energy moving through them as they awaited my response. In that moment, I understood the true weight of the badge I wore, not as a symbol of authority, but as a beacon for the hopes and fears of the people who called this rugged land home. "Our town's peace is hard won," I said, my voice carrying across the assembled throng. "And while I may be a sheriff in name alone, I stand with the people of Dusty Ridge. We seek harmony, not conflict." The outlaw studied me, his expression inscrutable, a man measuring the worth of his adversary. The silence stretched, a taut string ready to snap, and then he smiled, a slow, enigmatic curve of the lips that spoke of hidden intentions. "You have spirit," he acknowledged, a hint of respect threading through his words. "Perhaps there's more to you than meets the eye, Sheriff. But remember, in this land, truth is as shifting as the sands." With that, he turned to his men, signaling their departure. The riders mounted their horses, a cavalcade of shadows against the moonlit backdrop. They receded into the night, leaving behind a town caught between breaths, the echoes of their presence lingering in the stillness. As the townsfolk dispersed, returning to their homes and hearths, I remained on the porch, the weight of the night settling upon my shoulders. The outlaw's words echoed in my mind, a reminder of the tenuous balance I navigated. Dusty Ridge, with its secrets and stories, was a tapestry woven with threads of possibility, a place where each soul played their part in a grander narrative. And so, as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, bathing the town in hues of gold and rose, I stood ready, an imposter sheriff in a land of shifting sands, yet a guardian of dreams and destinies untold. For in this wild west, where the past and future intertwined like the roots of an ancient tree, every soul was a traveler, and I, too, had a journey to complete, a story to live amidst the ever-changing tapestry of possibilities. The morning sun unfurled across the horizon, its golden tendrils weaving through the sleepy town of Dusty Ridge like a gentle caress. The air was crisp, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and distant rain, a promise whispered by the heavens. As the light spilled across the streets, it illuminated the faded facades of the buildings, each one a silent witness to the stories that had unfolded within their wooden bones. I stood on the porch, the rough-hewn planks creaking under my boots, a sentinel watching over a land on the precipice of change. The badge on my chest felt both a burden and a beacon, a symbol of authority that was both assumed and yet somehow earned. The town was waking, stirring from its slumber like a giant stretching its limbs, each creak and groan a testament to the life that pulsed through its veins. The saloon doors swung open with a soft creak, and out stepped Clara, her auburn hair catching the light like fire. She moved with a grace that belied the hardships she had faced, a gentle strength that resonated with the earth beneath her feet. Her eyes met mine, a shared understanding passing between us, a silent acknowledgement of the roles we both played in this theater of dust and dreams. "Morning, Sheriff," she called, a teasing lilt to her voice, as if the title was a playful jest shared between conspirators. "Morning, Clara," I replied, tipping my hat, the brim casting a shadow over my eyes. "Looks like it's going to be a fine day." "Aye, that it does." She leaned against the porch railing, her gaze drifting to the horizon. "But out here, you never know what the day might bring." Her words hung in the air, a reminder of the unpredictability of the land we called home. Dusty Ridge was a place where fate danced with destiny, where each day unfurled like the pages of an unwritten book, its story waiting to be discovered. As Clara returned to her duties, I turned my attention to the town, my gaze sweeping over the familiar sights. The blacksmith's forge was already alight, tendrils of smoke curling into the sky, a testament to the ceaseless industry that kept the town's heart beating. The clang of hammer on anvil rang out, a rhythmic symphony that echoed across the streets, blending with the calls of merchants setting up their stalls. Each face I encountered carried with it a story, a thread in the tapestry that bound us all. Old Man Hargrove, his eyes clouded with memories of a bygone era, shuffled past, his cane tapping a staccato rhythm on the wooden boards. Young Tommy, his face smudged with dirt and dreams, raced by on a mission known only to him, a blur of youthful exuberance. And then there was Evelyn, the schoolteacher, her presence a beacon of knowledge and hope in a world that often seemed defined by its harshness. She offered a nod as she passed, her arms laden with books, each one a portal to distant lands and forgotten times. In her eyes, I saw the promise of a future not yet written, a world where possibility bloomed like wildflowers in the desert. Yet, amidst the familiar faces, there was one that stood out, a stranger, his silhouette framed by the morning light, his features obscured beneath the brim of a wide hat. He lingered at the edge of the street, his presence a dissonant note in the harmonious song of the town. Our eyes met, and in that fleeting moment, a silent challenge was issued, a question asked and left unanswered. The stranger moved on, his steps leaving no trace, his destination unknown. But his presence lingered, a shadow cast across the day, a reminder that even in the most tranquil of places, uncertainty lurked just beneath the surface. The hours slipped by, the sun climbing higher in the sky, casting long shadows that danced across the dusty streets. The town bustled with life, each moment a blend of routine and spontaneity, a dance choreographed by the unseen hands of fate. I moved through it all, a guardian of peace and pretense, the line between reality and illusion blurred by the roles we played. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of amber and indigo, a sense of unease settled over me, a whisper at the edge of consciousness. The stranger's presence gnawed at my thoughts, a puzzle yet to be solved, a story yet to be told. I found myself at the edge of town, where the prairie stretched out like an ocean of grass, the horizon a distant promise. There, amidst the whispering grasses, I saw him again, the stranger, his silhouette a stark contrast against the fading light. He stood still, as if waiting for something, a figure carved from the very essence of mystery. I approached, my footsteps muted by the earth, each step a question waiting to be answered. "Evening," I called, my voice carrying across the distance, a bridge between the known and the unknown. He turned, his face emerging from the shadows, revealing eyes that held the weight of 1,000 untold stories. There was a depth to his gaze, a well of secrets and sorrows, a life lived on the fringes of legend and lore. "Evening, Sheriff," he replied, his voice a low rumble, like distant thunder echoing across the plains. "What brings you to Dusty Ridge?" I asked, curiosity threading through my words, a desire to unravel the enigma before me. He paused, the silence stretching between us, a moment suspended in time. "Looking for something?" he said finally, his words a cipher, an invitation to delve deeper into the mysteries he carried. "And what might that be?" I pressed, sensing a story waiting to be uncovered, a truth hidden beneath layers of time and dust. "A place to call home," he replied, his voice tinged with a longing that resonated deep within me, a chord struck in the symphony of the human spirit. In that moment, I understood the unspoken bond that tied us all to this land, the quest for belonging, the search for a story that was uniquely our own. Dusty Ridge, with its secrets and shadows, was more than a town. It was a sanctuary, a place where dreams took root and destinies unfolded. The stranger turned his gaze to the horizon, where the sun dipped below the earth, painting the sky in a tapestry of stars. And as the first stars emerged, twinkling like distant lanterns in the vast expanse, I felt the weight of the night lift, replaced by a sense of purpose, a journey yet to be completed. For in this wild west, where legends were born and myths intertwined with reality, we were all travelers, each step a chapter in the tale of our lives. And as the night embraced the town, I knew that my story, like the stories of those around me, was far from over. A tapestry woven with threads of possibility, a dance of shadows and light beneath the endless sky. The night air carried a whisper of promise, a gentle breeze that rustled through the sagebrush and played a soft melody on the wooden beams of the saloon. The moon, a silvery sentinel in the sky, cast its ethereal glow upon the dusty streets, lending an almost otherworldly sheen to the town of Dusty Ridge. It was in this quiet symphony of night sounds that I resumed my patrol, my boots crunching rhythmically against the gravel, each step echoing a question of identity and fate. The stranger, whose presence had stirred a pot of curiosity and apprehension, lingered in my mind like the aftertaste of strong whiskey. There was a magnetism to him, a pull that seemed to draw me into his orbit even as he receded into the shadows. His words, though few, were laden with a wisdom that seemed to transcend the boundaries of time. As sheriff, albeit a fake one, my duty was to unravel the mysteries of this place, to protect its people from whatever storms might brew on the horizon. Yet as I continued my rounds, I couldn't shake the feeling that my role was more than just a charade. This facade of authority, this badge that gleamed under the moonlight, had become a part of me, and in its own peculiar way, it had lent me a strength I never knew I possessed. It was a paradox, a lie that spoke the truth about courage, resilience, and the power of belief. I wandered past the general store. Its windows darkened but whispered to life by the dreams of those who had shopped there, bought hopes and supplies for their journeys. I could almost hear the echoes of laughter, the murmurs of conversations long past, woven into the fabric of the wooden walls. It was a living history, a testament to the lives that had crossed paths in this outpost on the edge of nowhere. As I reached the livery, the scent of hay and horses mingling with the cool night air, I paused to listen to the soft nickers and snorts of the animals within. They were companions in their own right, silent witnesses to the passage of time and the shifting sands of destiny. There was a peacefulness here, an unspoken understanding between man and beast, a shared journey under the vast, sprawling sky. Yet, amidst this tranquility, a flicker of movement caught my eye, a shadow that danced along the periphery, elusive and fleeting. My senses sharpened, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling with a familiar twinge of suspense. It was a reminder that in this land of legends, where the line between truth and myth blurred like the horizon at dusk, danger was never far away. I followed the shadow, my instincts guiding me through the narrow alleyways and dimly lit paths that wound through the heart of Dusty Ridge. The town, though silent and still, seemed to hold its breath, as if aware of the unfolding narrative that played out within its boundaries. The moonlight painted intricate patterns on the ground, a celestial map that led me deeper into the mystery. As I rounded a corner, I caught sight of the stranger once more. He stood beneath the awning of the abandoned church, its steeple reaching up to touch the stars. There was a serenity to his posture, a calmness that belied the tension in the air. He turned to face me, his eyes reflecting the moon's glow, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. "You seek answers," he said, his voice a gentle caress in the night. "But sometimes what you find is a question that leads you down a path you never imagined." His words resonated within me, an echo of my own unspoken thoughts. This journey, this masquerade as a sheriff, had become more than a mere act. It was a quest for truth, for a sense of belonging that transcended the superficial roles we played. "What path is that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, conscious of the weight of the moment. "The one where fate and choice intertwine," he replied, his gaze steady and unwavering, "where the past and the future dance in a delicate balance, and the stories we tell shape the world around us." In that instant, I understood that this stranger was more than he seemed. He was a weaver of tales, a guardian of the narratives that bound us to the land and to each other. He was a reminder that in the Wild West, where identity was fluid and history was written by those bold enough to dream, we were all architects of our own destinies. We stood in silence, the night wrapping us in its embrace, the stars a witness to our unspoken pact. There was a sense of camaraderie, a recognition of kindred spirits on a shared journey. And as the wind whispered secrets through the trees, I knew that my story, interwoven with the stories of Dusty Ridge, was a tapestry yet to be completed, a chapter still unfolding under the watchful eye of the moon. The stranger nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the path ahead, before turning to disappear into the shadows once more. I watched him go, my heart a blend of anticipation and resolve, knowing that the night held more secrets yet to be unveiled. With the first light of dawn, Dusty Ridge would awaken, its streets bustling with the rhythm of life, the symphony of hopes and dreams that defined this frontier. And as the sheriff, real or not, I would be there, a guardian of stories, a keeper of the peace in a land where legends were born and the spirit of the Wild West lived on. The night slowly unfurled its cloak, revealing the first blush of dawn on the horizon, painting the sky in delicate shades of coral and gold. It was a new day, a blank canvas upon which the tales of Dusty Ridge would be written, each stroke a testament to the courage and resilience of those who called this place home. And as the sun rose, casting its warm embrace over the town, I felt a sense of belonging, a connection to the land and its people that went beyond the badge I wore. It was a bond forged in the fires of adventure and adversity, a story that was uniquely my own, woven into the larger tapestry of the Wild West. In this moment of quiet reflection, I understood that being a sheriff, even a fake one, was more than a role. It was a calling, a journey of discovery and self-realization that would continue as long as the stars danced in the sky and the winds sang their ancient lullabies across the plains. And so, with renewed purpose, I stepped forward, ready to embrace whatever the day might bring, a traveler on the path of destiny, a storyteller in the land of legends. The morning air was crisp, carrying with it the faint scent of sagebrush and the promise of countless uncharted adventures. The town of Dusty Ridge awoke slowly, its wooden structures creaking and yawning in the gentle embrace of the dawn. Doors opened to reveal shopkeepers sweeping their porches, and the clatter of hooves echoed as ranchers guided their horses through the dusty streets, beginning the day's toil under the vast, endless sky. As I walked down the main street, my boots whispering against the earth, I saw familiar faces, each etched with stories of their own, each a thread in the rich tapestry I had come to cherish. Old Man Jenkins tipped his hat as he passed by, his eyes twinkling with the wisdom of a life well lived. Young Sally, with her untamed curls, skipped alongside her mother, clutching a basket of freshly picked apples, their sweet aroma mingling with the cool morning breeze. My badge, though counterfeit, glinted in the sunlight, a symbol of authority, yes, but also of the intricate dance between deception and truth that I navigated daily. It was a peculiar paradox, this role of mine, one that required balancing the weight of expectation with the freedom of invention. In this land of opportunity and myth, I found myself constantly straddling the line between what was real and what was imagined. The saloon's doors swung open with a groan, inviting me into its dimly lit interior. As I entered, the familiar scent of tobacco and whiskey enveloped me, a comforting embrace that spoke of camaraderie and clandestine whispers. The bartender, A burly man with a heart of gold nodded in my direction. We shared a silent understanding, a mutual respect born from nights spent sharing stories over glasses of amber liquid. In one corner, a group of men clustered around a table, their laughter rising and falling like the melody of a well-loved tune. Cards were dealt with precision, and coins clinked softly as bets were placed. The air was thick with anticipation, each player hoping for fortune's favor, each hand a gamble in the game of life. As I settled into my usual spot at the bar, the rhythmic sound of piano keys filled the room, a soothing balm that wrapped around my weary soul. It was Miss Lila at the keys, her fingers dancing over the ivory, coaxing melodies that spoke of love and loss, of dreams that soared and hearts that broke. Her music was a language all its own, a bridge that connected us all in our shared humanity. I sipped my drink, the warmth spreading through me like a gentle fire, and allowed myself a moment of indulgence. Here, in this place where stories were born and legends took flight, I felt a sense of peace, a fleeting respite from the storm that brewed on the horizon. But peace, like all things, was temporary, and the winds of change were never far behind. As the last notes of Miss Lila's song faded into the quiet, the saloon doors swung open once more, admitting a figure draped in shadow. He moved with a predatory grace, his eyes scanning the room with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. The stranger's presence was a ripple in the fabric of our little world, a disturbance that promised to unravel the delicate balance we had come to rely upon. He approached the bar with a confidence that bordered on arrogance, his gaze locking onto mine as if he were reading the secrets etched upon my soul. "You're the sheriff, I hear," he said, his voice a low rumble that resonated in the silence. There was something in his tone, a challenge wrapped in silk, that set my instincts on edge. I nodded, the weight of my badge suddenly heavier than before. "That's right," I replied, keeping my voice steady, though my heart beat a frantic tattoo against my ribs. "Then maybe you can help me," he continued, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "I'm looking for someone, a man who owes me a debt." His words hung in the air, a veil drawn over the truth, and I knew then that this man was more than he appeared. He was a harbinger, a messenger of trouble that had followed him like a shadow. "Who might that be?" I asked, my curiosity tempered with caution. The saloon had fallen silent, all eyes fixed on our exchange, the air crackling with unspoken tension. "The name's not important," he replied dismissively, "but I'll know him when I see him, and when I do, there'll be a reckoning." His threat was a whisper of thunder, a promise of storm clouds gathering on the horizon. And in that moment, I realized that my role as sheriff, authentic or not, would soon be tested in ways I could not yet imagine. The stranger's eyes met mine, and in their depths, I glimpsed a reflection of my own fears, a mirror that revealed the fragile line between justice and vengeance. It was a dance as old as time itself, a waltz that had played out on these dusty streets before and would continue long after I was gone. As the stranger turned away, his presence a lingering shadow, I felt the weight of responsibility settle upon my shoulders. The town, with its secrets and its dreams, was counting on me to navigate the treacherous waters ahead, to protect its people from the storm that threatened to consume us all. Outside, the sun climbed higher, its light painting the world in vibrant hues, a reminder that even in the face of uncertainty, life moved inexorably forward. I stepped into the street, my heart a steady drumbeat of resolve, ready to meet whatever challenges lay before me. For in the Wild West, where legends were born and destinies forged, I had found my place, a guardian of stories, a keeper of peace, a fake sheriff with a real duty to the land and its people. And as long as the stars continued to dance in the sky, I would remain, a traveler on the path of destiny, a storyteller in the land of legends. The town of Dry Gulch lay beneath the relentless sun, its wooden structures casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of the past. The air was heavy with the scent of sagebrush and the faint, metallic tang of anticipation. Each step I took on the creaking wooden planks of the boardwalk felt like a note in an old familiar melody, a song of dust and dreams, of lawlessness and redemption. The townsfolk bustled around me, their lives a tapestry of routines and small triumphs. Mrs. Abernathy, with her hair piled high like a milkmaid's crown, was arranging jars of preserves in the general store window, each jar a jewel catching the sunlight. Mr. Clemens, the blacksmith, was already at work, the rhythmic clang of his hammer a heartbeat for the village. They nodded as I passed, their eyes a mixture of trust and curiosity, as if they were still deciding whether the sheriff's badge I wore was a symbol of hope or a harbinger of change. The saloon doors swung open with a creak that seemed to echo down the street. Inside, the murmur of conversation mingled with the tinkling of the piano, played by old Sam, whose fingers danced over the keys with a grace that belied his age. The room was a haze of tobacco smoke and the sweet, sharp scent of whiskey. I paused at the entrance, letting my eyes adjust to the dim light, and took in the scene. In one corner, a card game was in full swing, the players leaning in, their faces intent, as if they were peering into the very soul of fortune itself. At the bar, a group of cowhands laughed uproariously, their voices a chorus of camaraderie that filled the room like a warm embrace. I nodded to the barkeep, Tom, who polished a glass with the reverence of a man handling something sacred. "Morning, Sheriff," Tom said with a nod, his eyes sharp as a hawk's but friendly. "What's the word today?" "Quiet for now," I replied, my voice steady, though a small part of me was always braced for the unexpected. "But you know how this town can be." "Aye," Tom said, settling the glass down with a clink. "Like a rattlesnake, calm until it ain't." I made my way to a table near the window, where I could watch the town while keeping my back to the wall. It was a habit ingrained in me since I'd first pinned this badge to my chest, a reminder that vigilance was the price of peace in a land where justice often walked a narrow line. The door swung open again, and a figure stepped inside, dust swirling around him like a cloak. He was tall, with a lean, hard look about him, his eyes shadowed beneath the brim of a wide hat. The room went silent, the air thick with the weight of unspoken questions. He was a stranger, and in a town like Dry Gulch, strangers were either a promise of something new or a threat of something dangerous. I rose slowly, the chair scraping against the floorboards, a sound that seemed to snap the room back to life. The stranger's gaze met mine, and for a moment it was as if the world held its breath. There was a flicker of recognition, a spark of something shared and ancient, like two wolves meeting in the wild. "Morning," I said, my voice calm and welcoming, though my instincts were on high alert. He nodded, the brim of his hat casting a shadow over his face. "Sheriff," he acknowledged, his voice a low rumble, like distant thunder. "What brings you to Dry Gulch?" I asked, my words carefully measured. "Just passing through," he replied, though there was a weight to his words, a hint of a story untold. "Well, you're welcome to stay a while," I said. "We could use a fresh face or two." He smiled, a quick flash of teeth that was more a gesture of politeness than warmth. "Might take you up on that," he said, then turned to the bar, the tension in the room easing as he moved away. I returned to my seat, my senses still tingling with the awareness of potential danger. In the Wild West, every encounter was a dance, a careful balance of trust and suspicion, and even the smallest misstep could lead to chaos. The day wore on, the sun tracing its arc across the sky, casting the town in a golden glow that softened the harsh edges of reality. I made my rounds, the rhythm of my footsteps a comforting cadence in the dusty streets. The air was alive with the hum of cicadas, their song a reminder of the cycle of life, of death and rebirth, of endings and new beginnings. As afternoon slipped into evening, the sky blazed with the colors of a desert sunset, a riot of reds and oranges that set the horizon aflame. I paused at the edge of town, where the land stretched out in an endless, undulating sea of sage and sand. It was a place of stark beauty, where the line between earth and sky blurred into infinity. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see the stranger approaching, his silhouette dark against the dying light. He stopped a few paces away, his expression unreadable. "Beautiful, isn't it?" I said, gesturing to the vast expanse before us. He nodded, his gaze distant, as if he were seeing beyond the landscape into a past or future only he could discern. "There's a kind of magic here," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of truth. "Yeah," I agreed. "This land has a way of getting under your skin." He glanced at me then, his eyes sharp and assessing. "Why do you do it, Sheriff? Play the part?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. I considered my answer carefully, knowing that the truth was both simple and complex. "Because someone has to," I said finally. "This town, these people, they need someone to believe in, even if it's just a story." He studied me for a moment, then nodded as if he understood. "Stories have power," he said, "more than most people realize." We stood in silence, the vastness of the desert stretching before us, a reminder of the mysteries that lay beyond the horizon. The wind whispered through the sagebrush, carrying with it the promise of change, the inevitability of the unknown. As the first stars began to pierce the velvet sky, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The challenges of the day might be many, and the road ahead uncertain, but for now, I was content to be part of this story, to play my role in the tapestry of life that was Dry Gulch. The stranger turned to leave, his silhouette fading into the gathering shadows. "I'll be seeing you, Sheriff," he said, his voice a soft echo on the wind. "Take care." I replied, watching as he disappeared into the night, a figure shrouded in mystery and possibility. I lingered a moment longer, breathing in the cool desert air, feeling the pulse of the land beneath my feet. This was my place, my purpose, and as long as the stars continued to dance in the sky, I would remain, a guardian of stories, a keeper of peace, a fake sheriff with a very real duty to a town built on dreams and dust. The night wrapped itself around Dry Gulch like a tender embrace, its silence punctuated only by the occasional call of a distant coyote or the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. I turned from the horizon, my mind still dancing with the thoughts of the enigmatic stranger and the stories he might carry within him. The path back to the heart of the town seemed to shimmer in the moonlight, each step a soft whisper against the earth. The saloon was a warm glow in the distance, its windows aflame with the light of lanterns and the muted hum of life within. As I approached, the familiar notes of a piano drifted out to greet me, a melody both haunting and hopeful. It was a song I knew well, one often played by Miss Leela, the saloon's pianist, whose nimble fingers could coax tales out of ivory keys as skillfully as any storyteller could from words. Pushing open the swinging doors, I was met by a lively scene. The air was thick with laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the heady aroma of tobacco and whiskey. The townsfolk were gathered in small clusters, their faces animated in the glow of the kerosene lamps. I made my way to the bar, nodding to familiar faces and exchanging brief words of greeting. "Evening, Sheriff," called out Jake, the saloon keeper, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to resonate with the very beams of the building. He was a large man, sturdy as the oak that made up the bar top, with a face weathered by time and a smile that could light up the darkest night. "Evening, Jake," I replied, taking a seat on one of the well-worn stools. "Busy night." "Always is when the moon's full," he remarked with a twinkle in his eye, sliding a glass of amber liquid my way. "People get a bit restless, I reckon. Makes them thirstier." I took a sip, the whiskey warming me from the inside out. As I did, I glanced around the room, my eyes catching on a game of poker at one of the tables. It was a game as old as the town itself, a ritual dance of luck and skill. The players were engrossed, their expressions a tapestry of concentration and hope. In one corner, a group of cowhands were engaged in a lively debate, their voices rising and falling like the tides. They spoke of cattle drives and frontier justice, their words punctuated by the occasional slap of a hand on the table or the flash of a grin. Miss Lila's music filled the spaces between conversations, her fingers weaving a spell that held the room in thrall. Her presence was a reminder that even in the Wild West, beauty and art found a way to thrive amidst the dust and grit. As I watched, I felt the familiar tug of belonging, the sense that this place, with all its quirks and characters, was where I was meant to be. Yet, beneath the surface, a current of suspense hummed, a reminder that in Dry Gulch, the unexpected was always just a moment away. The door swung open with a creak, drawing my attention. A hush fell over the room as a stranger stepped inside, his features obscured by the shadow of his hat. He moved with a quiet confidence, crossing the room with the sure-footed grace of someone accustomed to navigating through life's unpredictable terrain. He stopped at the bar beside me, and Jake offered him a nod, pouring him a drink without a word exchanged. The stranger accepted it, his eyes scanning the room before settling on me. There was a challenge in his gaze, a silent question that hung between us like a hovering cloud. "New in town?" I asked, breaking the silence, my voice steady and calm. "You could say that," he replied, his voice low and gravely, the kind you'd expect from a man who'd seen more than his share of dust and dreams. "Looking for someone." "Are you now?" I took another sip of my drink, meeting his gaze with steady curiosity. "And who might that be?" He hesitated, a flicker of something, uncertainty, perhaps, crossing his face before he spoke. "A man who goes by the name of Caldwell. Heard he's been causing a bit of trouble around these parts." The mention of Caldwell's name sent a ripple through the saloon, a subtle shift in the air that was almost imperceptible. It was a name that carried weight, one that had been whispered in hushed tones ever since Caldwell had first ridden into town, bringing with him a storm of secrets and shadows. "Can't say I've heard of him," I replied, keeping my tone neutral, "but I'll keep an eye out." The stranger nodded, acknowledging the unspoken understanding between us. In a town like Dry Gulch, information was as valuable as gold, and trust was a currency not easily spent. As the night wore on, the saloon continued to pulse with life, a living, breathing creature of wood and glass and spirit. The stranger lingered at the bar, his presence a reminder of the stories yet untold, the mysteries yet unraveled. I felt the weight of the badge on my chest, the responsibility of my role as the town's protector, real or not, pressing down on me with renewed intensity. Outside, the moon climbed higher in the sky, casting its silver glow over the town. The wind carried with it the scent of sage and the promise of adventure, whispering secrets to those willing to listen. And I, the fake sheriff of Dry Gulch, was all ears. As the stranger finally rose to leave, he paused, meeting my gaze once more. "You be careful now, Sheriff," he said, his voice a soft murmur that seemed to blend with the music and the night. "You too," I replied, watching as he stepped into the darkness, a shadow among shadows. His departure left a void in the room, a reminder that in this land of endless horizons, every encounter was a thread in a vast, interconnected web of fate. With the stranger gone, the saloon returned to its familiar rhythm, the ebb and flow of conversation and music continuing unabated. I sat back, my mind a swirl of thoughts and possibilities, the night stretching out before me like an unwritten page. In Dry Gulch, the line between reality and illusion was as fine as the dust that settled on every surface, and I was both a player and a witness in this grand unfolding tale. As the stars continued their dance across the sky, I knew that come morning, the sun would rise on a town that was both timeless and ever-changing, a place where dreams were born and legends were made. And in the heart of it all, I would stand, a guardian of the peace, a weaver of stories, the Wild West's most unexpected hero. As the night deepened, the saloon's lantern light flickered like a beacon in the vast desert darkness, casting elongated shadows that danced across the wooden floorboards. The patrons' laughter and chatter mingled with the haunting notes of the piano, creating a symphony that was both comforting and tinged with a melancholic undercurrent. The air was thick with the scent of whiskey and smoke, an intoxicating blend that seemed to seep into every corner of the room, a reminder of the rugged life that thrived in this small yet significant outpost of civilization. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of the badge pinned to my chest, a symbol of authority that was as heavy as the responsibilities it represented. The metal felt cool against my skin, a constant reminder of the role I played in the fabric of this town. It was a role built on a delicate balance of truth and deception, an unspoken agreement between me and the people of Dry Gulch. They needed a figurehead, someone to look to in times of uncertainty, and I, with my borrowed authority and well-practiced bravado, fit the part like a well-worn glove. Outside, the wind whispered secrets through the cracks in the walls, carrying with it the stories of the desert, tales of outlaws and heroes, of fortunes won and lost. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the sound envelop me, becoming one with the rhythm of the night. In that moment, the boundaries of my world expanded, and I could feel the pulse of the land beneath my feet, a living, breathing entity that held its own mysteries, its own truths. The saloon's door swung open with a creak, and a gust of cool air swept through, carrying with it the crisp scent of sagebrush. I opened my eyes to see a figure silhouetted against the dim light, a newcomer whose presence pulled at the edges of my awareness. The stranger stepped inside, his boots tapping a steady beat on the floor, and as he approached, the patrons turned their gaze towards him, curiosity woven into the fabric of their expressions. He was a tall man, lean and sinewy, with a face weathered by the sun and wind. His eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the room with a practiced ease, taking in every detail with the precision of a hawk surveying its domain. There was something about him that set my instincts on edge, a sense that beneath his calm exterior lay a coiled tension, like a spring waiting to uncoil. Our eyes met, and for a moment, time seemed to pause, the world around us fading into a blur of muted colors and sounds. In that instant, a silent understanding passed between us, an acknowledgement of the roles we played in this desert theater. He nodded, a barely perceptible gesture that spoke volumes, and I returned the nod, accepting the unspoken challenge that lay between us. He made his way to the bar, moving with the fluid grace of a predator, and ordered a drink. The bartender, a grizzled old man with a face as craggy as the surrounding hills, obliged without question, sliding a glass of amber liquid across the polished surface. The stranger took a sip, savoring the burn of the whiskey as it slid down his throat, his gaze never leaving mine. The atmosphere in the saloon shifted subtly, the undercurrent of tension palpable as a storm gathering on the horizon. Conversations quieted and the music slowed, the piano's notes falling like gentle rain, a lullaby to soothe the restless spirits within. I remained seated, my senses attuned to every nuance, every shift in the air, aware that this night held the promise of change, a turning point in the narrative of my life as a fake sheriff. As the minutes ticked by, the stranger continued to observe, his eyes lingering on the faces of the patrons, as if searching for something hidden beneath the surface. I watched him closely, sensing that he was not merely a wanderer passing through, but a man with a mission, a purpose that transcended the ordinary. Finally, he turned his attention back to me, his gaze steady and unyielding. "Sheriff," he said, his voice a low rumble that carried the weight of distant thunder. "I've heard tell of your reputation. They say you're a man who can be relied upon in times of trouble." I met his gaze, maintaining the facade of confidence that had served me well in the past. "That's what they say," I replied, my voice even, betraying none of the unease that simmered beneath the surface. He took another sip of his drink, considering his next words carefully. "I'm in need of someone with your particular set of skills," he continued, each word measured, deliberate. "There's a matter that requires discretion, and I believe you're the man for the job." The room seemed to hold its breath, the air charged with anticipation as I weighed his proposition. In this land of shifting alliances and unspoken agreements, opportunities like this were both rare and fraught with peril. Yet, the allure of the unknown, the promise of adventure, and the chance to further weave my own legend was a siren's call I could not resist. "What kind of matter are we talking about?" I asked, leaning forward slightly, my interest piqued despite the warning bells ringing in my mind. The stranger smiled, a slow, enigmatic curve of his lips that hinted at secrets yet to be revealed. "A matter of justice," he replied cryptically, his eyes gleaming with an intensity that belied the casualness of his tone. "But not the kind that comes with a badge or a gavel. This is a different kind of justice, one that requires a man who understands the nuances of such things." His words hung in the air, a tantalizing puzzle that begged to be solved, and I found myself drawn to the challenge, the promise of a tale yet to be written. I nodded, a silent agreement to embark on this new journey, to step once more into the unknown and embrace the wild, untamed spirit of the West. The stranger raised his glass in a toast, a gesture of camaraderie and shared purpose. "To new beginnings," he said, his voice a whisper that echoed in the quiet of the room, a promise of adventure and discovery. "To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my glass against his, sealing the pact that would bind us together in the days to come. As the warmth of the whiskey spread through my veins, I felt the weight of the night lift, replaced by a sense of anticipation, a thrill that coursed through me like the fiery breath of a dragon. Outside, the wind continued its song, weaving through the streets and alleys of Dry Gulch, carrying with it the whispers of the past and the promise of the future. And in that moment, I knew that the story of the Wild West, of a town on the edge of civilization, and of a fake sheriff in pursuit of truth and legend, was far from over. It was a story that would continue to unfold, a tapestry of dreams and reality, of heroes and villains, all bound together by the inexorable march of time and the indomitable spirit of the frontier. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, I stood on the porch of the sheriff's office, feeling the cool morning air brush against my skin. The town of Dry Gulch lay before me, washed in the gentle glow of a new day. The wooden facades of the buildings seemed to come alive, their shadows long and mysterious, as if whispering secrets from a bygone era. I took a deep breath, the crisp air filling my lungs with a sense of vitality and purpose. The night had been long, filled with revelations and decisions that had set me on a path I had never imagined. Yet, as I watched the town slowly awaken, I felt a sense of belonging, as if I had finally found the place where I was meant to be. The world seemed to hold its breath in the quiet of the morning, as if waiting for the first notes of a symphony to break the silence. I could hear the distant clatter of hooves on cobblestones as early riders made their way through the streets, the creak of wagon wheels, and the soft murmur of voices as shopkeepers prepared for the day ahead. Each sound was a note in the song of the town, a melody that spoke of resilience and hope. As the sun climbed higher, the town came alive with activity. The air was filled with the scent of fresh bread and coffee, mingling with the earthy aroma of horses and leather. I could see the townsfolk moving with purpose, their faces lined with the wisdom of years spent in the unforgiving embrace of the frontier. I knew that my role as the sheriff, albeit a fake one, would not be without its challenges. The law was a fragile thing in these parts, a thin veneer over the raw, untamed spirit of the West. But I was determined to uphold it, to bring a sense of justice and order to Dry Gulch, even if it meant walking a tightrope between truth and deception. With a final glance at the rising sun, I turned and made my way inside, the wooden floorboards creaking under my boots. The sheriff's office was a modest space, cluttered with papers and wanted posters, the faint smell of tobacco lingering in the air. I settled into the worn leather chair behind the desk, feeling its contours mold to my shape, a throne of sorts for my new domain. I spent the morning poring over the records, familiarizing myself with the names and faces of the people who called Dry Gulch home. Each name was a thread in the fabric of the town, a story waiting to be told. There were names I recognized, those who had crossed paths with the law, and others who were mere whispers on the wind. As the hours passed, I felt the weight of my new role settle over me, a mantle of responsibility that both exhilarated and daunted me. I knew that my every action would be scrutinized, that my decisions would shape the fate of the town. But I was ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the room as a knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. I looked up to see a figure silhouetted against the light, a familiar face that brought a smile to my lips. It was Clara, the saloon owner, her presence a welcome distraction from the weighty matters at hand. "Mind if I come in?" she asked, her voice a melodic lilt that seemed to dance on the air. "Not at all," I replied, gesturing for her to take a seat. "What brings you here, Clara?" She settled into the chair opposite me, her eyes sparkling with a mischievous glint. "I thought I'd see how our new sheriff is settling in," she said, a teasing note in her voice. I chuckled, grateful for her company. Clara had been one of the first to welcome me to Dry Gulch, her warmth and humor a balm to my weary soul. She was a force of nature, a woman who commanded respect and admiration in equal measure. "I'm managing," I replied, leaning back in my chair. "Though I suspect there are a few folks who might still be skeptical of my credentials." Clara laughed, a rich, melodic sound that filled the room. "Oh, they'll come around," she said, her eyes twinkling. "You've got the look of a man who knows what he's doing, even if you're making it up as you go along." I grinned, appreciating her candor. "I suppose I should be grateful for small mercies," I said, my tone light. We spent the next hour talking, her stories of the town and its inhabitants a tapestry of color and life. She spoke of the old miner who still panned for gold in the creek, the schoolteacher with the fiery red hair who had a penchant for quoting Shakespeare, and the blacksmith who could shoe a horse in record time. Each tale was a brushstroke on the canvas of the town, a glimpse into the lives of those who called it home. As the afternoon wore on, I felt a growing sense of kinship with the people of Dry Gulch, a connection that transcended my role as sheriff. They were a resilient, spirited lot, their lives bound together by the harsh beauty of the land and the relentless march of progress. When Clara finally rose to leave, the sun was beginning its descent, casting a warm golden glow over the town. I walked her to the door, grateful for her companionship and the stories she had shared. "Thank you, Clara," I said, my voice sincere. "You've given me a lot to think about." She smiled, her eyes soft with understanding. "Remember, Sheriff," she said, her voice gentle, "we're all just trying to find our way in this wild world, and sometimes the best we can do is hold on to each other." With a final nod, she turned and made her way down the steps, her silhouette a graceful curve against the fading light. I watched her go, a sense of peace settling over me as I stood in the doorway. As the evening descended, the town was once again cloaked in shadows, the air filled with the hum of crickets and the distant cry of a coyote. I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges and dangers, that the mantle of sheriff would weigh heavily on my shoulders. But in that moment, with the stars beginning to twinkle in the vast expanse above, I felt a sense of purpose and belonging. I was ready to embrace the adventure that lay ahead, to navigate the delicate dance between truth and deception, justice and survival. For in the wild, untamed heart of the West, where legends were born and stories were told, I had found my place, a fake sheriff with a real mission, a man determined to make a difference in a world teetering on the brink of change. As the night deepened, the town of Stillwater seemed to breathe with a life of its own, each creak of wooden planks and whisper of wind through the alleyways, speaking a language only those who listened with their hearts could understand. The saloon's lights flickered like fireflies, casting a warm glow on the faces of those who gathered within, seeking solace from the encroaching darkness. I lingered on the porch of the sheriff's office, feeling the weight of the star pinned to my chest. It was a curious thing, this badge, an emblem of authority that I wore as a guise, yet somehow it seemed to grow heavier with every beat of my heart. It was as if the town itself had woven its stories into its metal, tales of triumph and tragedy, hope and despair. The night air was cool against my skin, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and the earthy aroma of the desert. I inhaled deeply, letting the scents ground me in the reality of my new life. The sound of horses' hooves echoed in the distance, a reminder that this world was alive, ever-moving, and unpredictable. As I turned to enter the office, my gaze fell on a shadow lingering by the hitching post. The figure was indistinct, cloaked in the night, yet there was a familiarity in the way it held itself, a quiet strength that spoke of much more than its silhouette revealed. I hesitated, my instincts whispering caution, but curiosity tugged at me like the persistent pull of a river's current. "Evening, Sheriff," came a voice, low and smooth, like a melody carried on the wind. I stepped closer, my eyes adjusting to the dim light. "Evening," I replied, my voice steady despite the uncertainty that coiled within me. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a man with eyes as sharp as a hawk's and a smile that danced at the corners of his mouth. His face was weathered, etched with lines that spoke of journeys long and arduous, yet his gaze held a spark of mischief, a flicker of something ancient and untamed. "I hear tell there's a new sheriff in town," he said, his tone laced with a playful challenge. "And yet, I find myself wondering what kind of man takes up a mantle that ain't truly his." His words hung in the air, a delicate balance between jest and accusation. I met his gaze, my mind racing to find purchase in the slippery terrain of our conversation. "Sometimes it takes a stranger to see what others cannot," I replied, choosing my words with care. He chuckled, a sound like gravel beneath boots. "A stranger indeed. But tell me, Sheriff, what do you see when you look at Stillwater?" I paused, considering the question. The town was a tapestry of contrasts, faded glory and burgeoning ambition, shadows and light, secrets whispered in the dead of night. I saw a place on the cusp of transformation, where every choice could tip the balance between chaos and order. "I see a town that's searching," I said finally. "A place where people are trying to find their footing in a world that's changing faster than they can keep up." The man's eyes gleamed with something akin to approval, a perceptive answer, for a man with no roots here. Sometimes roots can bind as much as they anchor, I countered, feeling the truth of the words settle within me. He nodded, a gesture that seemed to acknowledge an unspoken understanding between us. Well, Sheriff, I reckon you'll do just fine, but be wary. The West is a wild place, and not all who wander have noble intentions. With the tip of his hat, the stranger turned and melted back into the shadows, leaving me standing alone on the porch. His presence lingered, like the echo of a song that refuses to fade, and I knew that our paths would cross again before long. Inside the office, the flickering lamplight cast shadows that danced across the walls, a silent audience to the thoughts that tumbled through my mind. The desk was cluttered with papers and wanted posters, the detritus of a life dedicated to law and order. I sifted through them, each face a reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. Yet beneath the surface of uncertainty, there was a thrill, a sense of adventure that thrummed in my veins like the distant rumble of a storm. This was a world where legends were forged, where the line between hero and outlaw blurred beneath the relentless sun. I was not a true sheriff, but perhaps that was my greatest strength. I could navigate this world with the eyes of an outsider, unburdened by the weight of expectation and history. In a place where reality was as fluid as the sands of the desert, I could be whatever the town needed me to be: a guardian, a guide, a beacon in the night. The hours slipped by, marked only by the slow passage of the moon across the sky. I found myself drawn to the window, where the world beyond was painted in shades of silver and shadow. It was a landscape both familiar and foreign, a place where the past whispered secrets and the future shimmered with possibility. As dawn's first light touched the horizon, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with dangers both seen and unseen, but I was ready to face it. For in the heart of the Wild West, where myths were born and destinies forged, I had found my calling. A fake sheriff with a real mission, determined to carve a path through the chaos of a changing world. The town stirred to life with the break of day, its rhythms a symphony of sounds that spoke of resilience and hope. I stepped into the street, the badge gleaming on my chest, and knew that whatever lay ahead, I would meet it with courage and resolve. For in this place of stark beauty and untamed promise, I was more than a pretender. I was a part of its story, a chapter waiting to be written, a thread in the tapestry of the Wild West. The morning air was crisp, imbued with the scent of sagebrush and earth, as I walked down the dusty main street of the town. Each step seemed to echo through the early quiet, a reminder of my presence in this unfolding narrative. The sun, still low in the sky, cast long shadows that stretched like the fingers of a ghost across the wooden facades and dirt paths. The world was waking slowly, as if savoring the last moments of tranquility before the day's chaos began. I tipped my hat to Martha, the baker's wife, as she swept the porch of their small shop. Her smile was warm, a beacon of familiarity in this place where so much was unpredictable. Beyond her, the saloon doors creaked open, releasing a tumble of laughter and music as the last of the night's revelers made their way out, bleary-eyed and smiling at the promise of a new day. The town was a mosaic of characters and stories, each one as vivid as the colors of a desert sunset. There was Old Tom, with his tales of gold strikes and Indian encounters, his eyes a map of the years etched deeply into his skin. Young Billy, a boy with dreams too big for his small frame, always trailing after the cowboys, hoping to learn their ways. And Miss Clara, the school teacher, who carried a stack of books as if they were treasures, her passion for knowledge a light in the darkness for the children of this dusty settlement. As I continued down the street, my mind wandered back to the events that had brought me here. How I had stumbled into this role of sheriff, a charade that had become more real with each passing day. It was not just the badge or the authority it implied, but the responsibility that had rooted itself within me, like a seed seeking soil. The morning unfolded in a series of small tasks and encounters. I mediated a dispute over a stray calf, its owner a grizzled rancher whose voice was as rough as the terrain he called home. I reassured the widow Jenkins, whose fears of her late husband's creditors were as tangible as the dust she swept from her porch. Each interaction was a thread, weaving me deeper into the fabric of the community. Around midday, a stranger rode into town. His silhouette, dark against the blazing sky, was a stark reminder of the unpredictability of this life. He was tall and lean, his face shadowed beneath the brim of a wide hat. His horse, a magnificent creature of sleek muscles and restless eyes, pawed at the ground impatiently. I watched him from the steps of the sheriff's office, my instincts on high alert. In a place like this, newcomers were always viewed with a mixture of curiosity and caution. The stranger dismounted with a fluid grace, his movements as smooth as the whispers of wind through the canyons. "Morning, Sheriff," he called, his voice carrying a hint of an accent I couldn't quite place. "Morning," I replied, my gaze steady. "What brings you to our town?" "Just passing through," he said, his eyes scanning the street, taking in the details with a practiced air. "Heard there's a poker game worth playing at your saloon." I nodded, the tension easing slightly. "You'll find it at the Silver Spur," I said, gesturing down the road. "Just mind your manners. We like things peaceful here." He tipped his hat, a shadow of a smile playing on his lips. "I'm all for peace, Sheriff. It's good for business." With that, he led his horse toward the hitching post, blending seamlessly into the rhythm of the town. Yet, as he walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that his arrival was more than a simple coincidence. The air seemed charged with a new energy, as if the very earth beneath our feet was holding its breath. The afternoon sun climbed higher, casting its relentless heat across the landscape. I retreated to the shade of the porch, my mind churning over the day's events. There was an unease that lingered, a sense that something was shifting beneath the surface. As the shadows lengthened, the town settled into the familiar routines of evening. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys, mingling with the scents of bread baking and stews simmering. The saloon doors swung open and shut, punctuating the air with bursts of laughter and the clink of glasses. I found myself drawn back to the saloon, the promise of a cool drink and conversation, a welcome respite from the day's heat. Inside, the atmosphere was lively, a collage of sound and color that enveloped me as I stepped through the doors. The stranger was there, seated at a table with a group of players, his expression focused yet relaxed. Cards moved between hands like the secret exchanges of desert winds, and the pile of coins in the center of the table grew steadily. I watched from the bar, nursing a glass of whiskey, the burn of it a comforting presence. Around me, the patrons talked and laughed, their voices a tapestry of stories and dreams. Yet my attention kept drifting back to the stranger, his presence a magnet pulling at my thoughts. As the game progressed, it became clear that he was a skilled player, the kind who knew when to fold and when to press his advantage. He played with a calm confidence, his eyes never leaving the cards, as if the world beyond the table had ceased to exist. The night deepened, and with it came a sense of anticipation, a feeling that something was about to unfold. I watched as the stranger gathered his winnings, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. He rose from the table, his gaze meeting mine across the room. For a moment, time seemed to suspend, the sounds around us fading into the background. He nodded, a silent acknowledgement that spoke volumes, before turning to leave. I followed him out into the night, the cool air a balm after the warmth of the saloon. Outside, the town lay quiet, the stars a glittering canopy above. The stranger paused, his hand resting on the neck of his horse, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "You play well," I said, breaking the silence that stretched between us. He chuckled softly. "It's a living, Sheriff. For some of us, it's the only way." "There's more to life than cards and coins," I said, my voice carrying a note of challenge. "Perhaps," he replied, his gaze thoughtful. "But out here, you take your chances where you can find them." He mounted his horse, the animal snorting softly as it shifted beneath him. I watched as he prepared to ride out, a part of me wondering if I would ever see him again. "Safe travels," I said, a farewell that was more than just words. He tipped his hat, a gesture that spoke of mutual respect. "You too, Sheriff. Keep the peace." With that, he turned his horse and rode into the night, his silhouette merging with the shadows until he was nothing more than a memory, a brief encounter in the tapestry of my life. As I stood there, the night unfolding around me, I realized that this was the essence of the Wild West, a place where every moment was a gamble, every interaction a story waiting to be told. And in this ever-shifting landscape, I was a part of it all, a fake sheriff in a real world, carving my path through the chaos and the beauty of this untamed land. The moon hung low and luminous, casting its silver glow over the dusty street of the sleeping town. The air was cool, with a whisper of sagebrush carried on the night breeze, and the stars stretched endlessly above, a sprawling blanket of diamonds. In that vast expanse, I found a strange solace, a quiet companionship in the solitude that wrapped around me like an old, familiar coat. The town was still, each building a sentinel standing guard in the velvet darkness. I turned slowly, taking in the wooden facades and the saloon's dimly lit windows, the only sign of life at this hour. The creak of a weathered sign swinging gently in the breeze was the only sound, a soft, rhythmic lament that seemed to echo my own thoughts. As my boots scuffed softly against the ground, I felt the weight of my badge, a small metal emblem that marked me as something I was not. In truth, I was no sheriff, but a man playing a part, a charlatan amidst the dusty trails and sprawling plains. Yet I had somehow been drawn into this role, this facade that had become more than mere pretense. I wandered down the street, the shadows stretching out long and slender before me. Each step carried me further into my own thoughts, into the tangled web of choices and chances that had led me to this moment. The night was alive with the subtle rustle of leaves and the far-off call of a coyote, sounds that threaded themselves into my consciousness, grounding me in the here and now. As I reached the edge of town, I paused, feeling the pull of the wilderness beyond, the call of the land that was as wild and untamed as the souls who inhabited it. I knew that beyond the horizon lay a world of unknowns, a place where the rules of civilization faded into the backdrop of a more primal existence. I turned back toward the heart of the town, feeling the weight of my role settle once more upon my shoulders. There was a certain power in the badge I wore, a power that was as intoxicating as it was burdensome. It was a responsibility, a mantle that required me to walk a line between justice and deception, truth and illusion. As I returned to the sheriff's office, I felt the familiar creak of the wooden floor beneath my feet, the scent of old leather and tobacco lingering in the air. I lit the lamp on the desk, its warm glow casting soft shadows that danced upon the walls. The room was sparse but functional, a place where decisions were made and the weight of the law was felt. Sitting in the old creaky chair, I leaned back, letting the silence envelop me. It was a moment of reflection, a pause in the chaos of the world outside. My thoughts drifted to the stranger who had ridden into town, a man who had seemed to see through my guise with a clarity that was both unsettling and intriguing. His words echoed in my mind, a challenge to the facade I wore, a reminder of the precarious balance I maintained. Yet there was also a kinship in his eyes, a recognition of the wild spirit that lurked just beneath the surface, a spirit that yearned for freedom and the thrill of the unknown. I closed my eyes, allowing the rhythm of the night to wash over me, the gentle cadence of crickets and the distant howl of the wind. It was a lullaby of sorts, a melody that spoke of the land and its people, of the stories that wove their way through the fabric of time. And in that moment, I understood that the Wild West was more than just a place. It was a state of being, a dance between order and chaos, a landscape where every soul was both hunter and hunted, both hero and villain. It was a place where the lines blurred, where the truth was as elusive as the horizon. As the night deepened, I felt the stirrings of a new resolve, a determination to embrace the role I had been given, to walk the path I had chosen with a sense of purpose. There was a story to be written here, a tale that was mine to tell, even if the words were not yet clear. With a sigh, I rose from the chair, extinguishing the lamp and plunging the room back into darkness. The night awaited, a canvas upon which I would paint my journey, each step a brushstroke, each choice a color in the tapestry of my life. As I stepped back into the cool night air, I felt the gentle pull of the land, the promise of adventure and discovery that lay just beyond the horizon. The stars above glimmered with a knowing light, as if they too were in on the secret, the grand design that was unfolding. And so I walked into the night, a fake sheriff in a real world, a man caught between the roles he played and the truth he sought. In the silence, I could hear the heartbeat of the Wild West, a rhythm that pulsed through the land and through my veins, a reminder that I was part of something greater, something timeless and eternal. With each step, I felt the weight of the badge diminish, replaced by the thrill of the unknown, the promise of a story yet to be told. And in that moment, I knew that the Wild West was not just a place I inhabited, but a part of me, a piece of my soul that would forever roam the untamed landscapes of the heart. The night cloaked me in its velvet embrace, whispering secrets that swirled like the dust devils across the plains. As I made my way down the winding path that led away from the township, the scent of sagebrush and the faint, sweet aroma of blooming cacti filled the air, painting the darkness with their fragrant strokes. The moon hung low, a watchful guardian casting its silver glow over the rugged terrain. Shadows danced in the gentle breeze, and the rustle of leaves was a lullaby that eased the tension from my shoulders. The land here was alive, breathing, and in its breath I found both solace and suspense. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, a mournful, solitary sound that echoed through the night, a reminder of the wildness that lay just beyond the fragile borders of civilization. I paused, listening, feeling the pull of the unknown paths that stretched before me, each one a promise of secrets waiting to be unearthed. My journey took me past the old church, its silhouette stark against the heavens, a sanctuary for those seeking redemption. Its bell, silent now, had once called the faithful to worship, and I wondered if it could toll for a man like me, a man caught between duty and deception, searching for a truth that seemed ever elusive. As I moved further from the town, the landscape opened up, revealing a sea of grass that swayed like waves under the night's gentle caress. The horizon stretched endlessly, a line where earth met sky, where dreams mingled with reality, and I felt the thrill of being a small part of something vast and unknowable. In the quiet of the night, my thoughts turned inward. I pondered the choices that had led me here, to this life of subterfuge and half-truths. The role of a sheriff had been thrust upon me, an unexpected mantle that I wore with both apprehension and a strange sense of belonging. It was a performance, yes, but one that was beginning to blur the lines between actor and role, between fiction and reality. I wondered what the townsfolk saw when they looked at me. Did they see a figure of authority, a keeper of peace, or a hollow man playing a part? And did it matter? The questions circled in my mind, elusive as the wind, yet I sensed that the answers lay not in words, but in actions, in the choices I made each day. The path led me to a small rise, a vantage point from which I could see the town spread out below, a cluster of lights twinkling in the darkness like grounded stars. It was a place filled with stories, each person living their own narrative, weaving their threads into the larger tapestry of life. And in this moment of clarity, I realized that my story was interwoven with theirs, that we were all players on this stage, each with our own roles to fulfill. As I stood there, gazing down at the town, the sound of hooves reached my ears, a rhythmic drumming that grew louder, echoing the beat of my heart. Out of the shadows emerged a rider, silhouetted against the moonlit backdrop, a lone figure moving with purpose through the night. I watched as the rider approached, their features obscured by the brim of a wide hat. There was a tension in their posture, a sense of urgency that piqued my curiosity and set my pulse racing. In a land where lawlessness often reigned, a solitary rider in the dead of night could mean many things. Was it a messenger, a drifter, or perhaps someone with business of a more dubious nature? The rider pulled up alongside me, and I caught a glimpse of their face. Sharp, angular features shadowed in the moonlight. Their eyes met mine, and in that brief moment, I saw a flicker of recognition, a silent communication that passed between us like a current. There was something familiar, yet enigmatic about this stranger, a puzzle that begged to be solved. "Evening, Sheriff," the rider said, their voice low, carrying a hint of mirth that danced on the edge of their words. "Out for a midnight stroll?" I tipped my hat in response, a smile playing on my lips despite the uncertainty. "Seems I'm not the only one drawn to the night. What brings you out here?" The rider leaned forward, resting their forearms on the saddle horn, a gesture that spoke of ease, yet hinted at readiness. "Let's just say I've got a good nose for trouble, and it seems to be brewing in these parts." Their words hung in the air, laden with meaning, and I felt the stirrings of intrigue, the anticipation of a tale about to unfold. Trouble, you say? Care to elaborate? They chuckled softly, a sound that mingled with the night breeze. Oh, it's nothing that can't wait till morning. Just thought I'd get a lay of the land, see how things stand. I nodded, understanding that in this world, information was often a currency more valuable than gold. Well, if trouble's brewing, it's best to keep an eye on the pot. You know where to find me if you need to share what you've learned. The riders shifted in the saddle, their gaze sweeping over the landscape as if committing it to memory. I'll do that, Sheriff. Until then, keep your wits about you. These are interesting times. With that, they turned their horse, a sleek creature as dark as the shadows it moved through, and rode off into the night, the sound of hooves fading into the distance like a heartbeat receding into silence. I stood there for a moment, watching the horizon swallow the rider, feeling the night close in around me once more. The encounter left me with more questions than answers, a sense of something larger at play, a game of shadows and light where the stakes were as high as the stars above. As I made my way back to the town, the rider's parting words lingered in my mind. Interesting times indeed, I mused, feeling the pull of the unknown, the promise of adventure that lay just beyond the reach of certainty. The land was alive with possibilities, and I was a part of its unfolding story, a participant in the dance of fate. The town was quiet when I returned, its streets slumbering under the watchful eye of the moon. I paused outside the sheriff's office, the wooden door creaking softly as I pushed it open. Inside, the air was cool, the familiar scent of leather and tobacco mingling with the faint traces of dust. I settled into the worn chair behind the desk, the badge on my chest a cold weight against my skin, a reminder of the role I played. But as I sat there, the events of the night swirling in my mind like smoke, I felt a shift within, a change as subtle as the turning of the wind. The Wild West was not just a setting, a backdrop for my tale. It was a living, breathing entity, a character in its own right, shaping and being shaped by the people who called it home. And as I closed my eyes, letting the night's mysteries wash over me, I knew that my journey was far from over, that the story of the fake sheriff would continue to unfold in ways I could not yet imagine. In the silence, I could hear the whispers of the land, the promise of dawn riding on the breeze. And in that promise, I found peace, a momentary respite from the unknown, a sliver of clarity in a world of shadows. The night held its secrets close, but I was content to wait, to let the story reveal itself in its own time, each chapter a step along the winding path of destiny. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of soft lavender and gold, I felt the world around me begin to stir. The gentle rustle of leaves whispered secrets of the night just past, and the distant call of a lone coyote echoed through the canyon, a reminder that life was motion, ever-changing and unending. The land was waking, stretching its limbs after the long, silent embrace of darkness, and with it, my own spirit rose to meet the day. I stood, brushing the dust from my trousers, feeling the earth's cool embrace slip away. The badge, a cold metal against my chest, seemed to hum with a newfound energy, as if aware of the challenges that lay ahead. I walked to the edge of the bluff, where the town lay nestled below, its wooden buildings bathed in the soft glow of morning. The sight was both familiar and foreign, a place I had come to know intimately, yet still held countless mysteries within its weathered facade. As I descended the hill, the earthy scent of sagebrush filled my senses, mingling with the crispness of the morning air. Each step was a reminder of my place here, of the role I had chosen to play in this unfolding drama. The path was uneven, marked by the footprints of those who had walked it before, and I followed its twists and turns with a quiet determination, feeling the eyes of the land upon me. In the town, life began to stir with the dawn. The blacksmith's hammer rang out like a heartbeat, steady and sure, while the distant clatter of hooves announced the arrival of a traveler on the dusty road. I nodded to the townsfolk as I passed, their faces etched with a mixture of curiosity and respect. They saw me as their sheriff, their protector and guide, yet I was acutely aware of the deception that lay beneath the surface. It was a role I played with conviction, but one that weighed heavily on my conscience. My first stop was the jailhouse, a humble building of stone and timber that stood sentinel at the heart of the town. Inside, the air was cool and musty, carrying the faint scent of tobacco and leather. I settled into the worn chair behind the desk, the leather cracked and aged by years of use, and surveyed the room with a practiced eye. The cells stood empty, their iron bars casting shadows on the floor like the ribs of some great beast. As I sat there, lost in thought, the door swung open with a creak, admitting a shaft of golden light. It was Sarah, the town's schoolteacher, and a woman of keen intellect and unwavering resolve. Her presence was a comfort, a reminder that I was not alone in this endeavor. "Morning, Sheriff," she greeted, her voice warm yet wary. "Heard there was some commotion last night." I nodded, recalling the events with a shiver of unease. There was, a stranger in town, asking questions best left unanswered. Her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, studied me with a depth that belied her gentle demeanor. "And what did you tell him?" "That I'm the sheriff," I replied, a wry smile playing on my lips, "and that I don't take kindly to strangers stirring up trouble." Sarah chuckled, a sound like wind chimes in the breeze. "Well, you've certainly got them all fooled." The truth of her words settled between us like an unspoken promise. In this world of dust and dreams, where reality was as malleable as clay, I had become a figure of authority, a symbol of justice in a land where such things were often in short supply. But the weight of that responsibility was a constant reminder of my own limitations, of the fragile facade I had constructed. As the day wore on, the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the dusty streets. The town bustled with activity, a symphony of life that played out in 1,000 tiny dramas. Children dashed through the alleys, their laughter a bright counterpoint to the gruff voices of the men gathered at the saloon. The clink of glasses and the murmur of conversation spilled into the street, weaving a tapestry of sound that enveloped the town in a cloak of familiarity. Yet beneath this veneer of normalcy, a tension simmered, a subtle undercurrent that hinted at the darkness lurking just out of sight. I could feel it in the way the townsfolk glanced over their shoulders, in the whispers that followed me as I passed. It was a reminder that the Wild West was a place of contradictions, where beauty and danger walked hand in hand. As the afternoon sun began its descent, painting the sky with strokes of amber and rose, I found myself wandering along the edge of town, drawn by an inexplicable pull. The land stretched out before me, a vast expanse of rolling hills and jagged peaks, its beauty both stark and serene. It was a landscape that demanded respect, a place where nature reigned supreme and man was but a fleeting visitor. In the distance, I could see a figure moving along the ridge, a solitary rider silhouetted against the sky. There was something familiar about the way they moved, a grace and confidence that spoke of experience. I watched as they descended the hill, their horse a dark shadow against the golden grass, and felt a surge of anticipation. As they approached, I recognized the figure as Jack, an old friend and confidant from a time before I had donned the badge. His presence was both a surprise and a relief, a reminder of the life I had left behind and the choices that had led me here. "Jack," I called, raising a hand in greeting. "What brings you to these parts?" He dismounted with a fluid ease, his eyes crinkling with a smile. "Heard there was a new sheriff in town," he replied, his voice rich with amusement. "Thought I'd come see for myself." We clasped hands, a gesture of camaraderie that spoke of years of shared adventures and unspoken understanding. Jack was a man of few words, but his presence was a balm to my restless soul, a reminder that I was not alone in this vast and untamed world. We walked together along the edge of the town, the setting sun casting long shadows at our feet. As we talked, I could feel the weight of my secret easing, the burden of deception lightened by the knowledge that I had an ally in this place of shifting sands. "Things are changing," Jack said, his gaze fixed on the distant mountains. "The world's getting smaller, and people are starting to notice." I nodded, understanding the truth of his words. The Wild West was a place of transformation, a land where the past and future collided in a dance of chaos and creation. It was a place where anything was possible, where dreams could be realized or shattered in the blink of an eye. And as we stood there, bathed in the glow of the setting sun, I felt a sense of peace, a certainty that whatever lay ahead, I would face it with courage and resolve. For in this land of endless possibilities, where the line between truth and illusion was as thin as a whisper, I had found a purpose, a reason to continue my journey. The Wild West was my home, a place of mystery and magic, of danger and delight. And as the stars began to twinkle in the deepening sky, I felt the promise of adventure calling me onward, a siren song that would guide me through the darkness and into the light of a new dawn. As the stars peppered the darkening sky, their brilliance mirrored the twinkling curiosity in my heart. Each point of light seemed to whisper stories of paths untaken, of lives lived in the shadow of the mountains that loomed ahead, silent sentinels of time. I stood there with Jeremiah, the grizzled old trapper whose wisdom was as deep as the canyons that lay scattered across the land, and I felt the weight of the world shift slightly, as if the very earth beneath my boots was acknowledging the moment. The mountains, Jeremiah mused, his voice a gravelly echo of years spent under the open sky, they hold secrets, whispers of the old world. Listen closely, and you might just hear them. His words lingered in the air like the smoke from a campfire, curling and twisting into the evening breeze, and I found myself leaning into the silence, straining to catch the murmurs carried by the wind. The air was thick with the scent of sagebrush and the promise of rain, and as I inhaled deeply, I felt a shiver of anticipation run through me. The town of Dusty Hollow lay behind us, a collection of buildings huddled against the vastness of the plains. It was a place where the law was more suggestion than certainty, where the role of sheriff was as fluid as the shifting sands. I had stumbled into the position by accident, a twist of fate that had seen me don the star-shaped badge, a symbol of authority that was more illusion than reality. Being the sheriff, albeit a fake one, was a dance of shadows, a performance I had come to embrace with an unexpected fervor. The townsfolk, a mix of weary settlers and hopeful dreamers, looked to me for guidance, for strength in the face of the unknown. Little did they know that I was as much a wanderer as any cowboy riding the range, a seeker of stories, of truths hidden beneath the veneer of civilization. Yet, in this role, I had found a strange comfort, a sense of belonging that had eluded me for so long. The Wild West, with its untamed beauty and raw potential, offered a canvas upon which I could paint my own destiny. It was a place where legends were born and myths took root, where the past and future intertwined in a tapestry woven from the dreams of those who dared to call it home. Jeremiah shifted beside me, drawing my attention back to the present, to the soft symphony of crickets and the distant howl of a lone coyote. "You've got the look of a man on a mission," he said, his eyes crinkling in the corners as he studied me. "What's next for you, Sheriff? More adventures, or will you settle down and hang up that star?" I chuckled, the sound a low rumble that seemed to harmonize with the night. "Settling down isn't in the cards just yet," I replied, my gaze drifting to the horizon where the first hints of moonlight kissed the rugged peaks. "There's too much to see, too many stories left to uncover." Jeremiah nodded, a silent understanding passing between us. He, too, was a creature of the wild, a man who thrived on the freedom of the open road, who found solace in the untamed lands that stretched beyond the edge of civilization. Together, we stood as kindred spirits, bound by the call of the unknown, by the lure of the adventure that awaited us. As the night deepened, the air grew cooler, and the world seemed to hold its breath, suspended in a moment of anticipation. The stars, steadfast in their vigil, watched over us with a patience born of eons, their light a reminder of the vastness of the universe and our place within it. "There's a tale or two in those mountains," Jeremiah said, his voice a soft rumble that blended with the rustle of the wind through the grass. A mystery waiting to be unraveled. The promise of discovery tingled in my fingertips, and I felt the familiar pull of curiosity, the urge to explore, to uncover the secrets hidden in the folds of the earth. The mountains were a siren's call, a challenge that beckoned me with the allure of the unknown. I turned to Jeremiah, my decision made. "Let's see what stories the mountains have to tell," I said, a grin spreading across my face as the thrill of the journey coursed through me. With a nod, Jeremiah clapped me on the shoulder, a gesture of camaraderie, of shared purpose. Together we mounted our horses, the familiar creak of leather and the snort of our steeds a comforting symphony in the night. The world was ours to explore, a vast expanse of possibility stretching out before us. As we rode into the darkness, the town of Dusty Hollow fading into memory, I felt the weight of the badge on my chest, a symbol of the path I had chosen. Being a fake sheriff was a role I had stumbled into, a part I played with a mix of bravado and uncertainty. But in this land of dreams and dust, where reality and illusion danced hand in hand, I had found my place, my purpose. The mountains loomed ahead, their peaks silhouetted against the starry sky, a promise of adventure waiting to be fulfilled. With each step of our horses, the rhythm of the ride echoed in my soul, a heartbeat that matched the pulse of the land itself. The Wild West was a place of contradictions, a realm where the past clashed with the future, where the line between hero and outlaw blurred like a mirage in the midday sun. It was a land of opportunity, of danger and delight, where the only certainty was change. And as we rode toward the mountains, the promise of new stories to tell and mysteries to unravel, guiding us onward, I knew that whatever lay ahead, I would face it with courage and resolve. For in this land of endless possibilities, where the line between truth and illusion was as thin as a whisper, I had found my home. The night enveloped us like an old cloak, worn and comforting, its gentle embrace whispering secrets of the ancient earth. The stars above were scattered diamonds, cold and distant, yet somehow intimate in their eternal vigil. Each twinkling light seemed a storyteller in its own right, weaving tales of the universe that unfolded before us, a vast tapestry of time and space. Our horses moved with a steady grace, their hooves drumming a soft, rhythmic lullaby against the hardened earth. The gentle creak of leather and the whisper of the wind through the sagebrush added to the symphony of the night. I found solace in this harmony, a rare peace that settled over me like the first snowfall of winter, pure and untouched. Beside me, my companions rode in silence, their silhouettes dark against the moonlit landscape. There was Dusty, his eyes ever watchful, a man whose loyalty was as steadfast as the North Star. And then there was Amelia, her spirit as unyielding as the steel of her revolver, a woman who carried her own ghosts with a quiet dignity. The mountains drew closer, their majestic forms shrouded in shadow and mystery. They loomed like ancient sentinels, guardians of secrets untold. I could feel their pull, a magnetic force drawing us deeper into the unknown. It was a feeling both thrilling and terrifying, like standing on the precipice of a great canyon, to the abyss yawning before you, daring you to leap. As we rode, the wind began to carry the scent of pine and damp earth, the promise of a forest hidden within the mountain's embrace. It was a smell that spoke of life and decay, of cycles unbroken and eternal. I breathed it in, letting it fill my lungs, grounding me in this moment, in this place. The night was alive with the sounds of the wilderness, a chorus of crickets and the occasional call of a night bird. It was a reminder that this world, for all its harshness, was vibrant and full of life. Each sound, each scent was a thread in the intricate weave of the Wild West, a world that was both savage and sublime. As we neared the foothills, the path narrowed, winding its way through rocky outcrops and dense thickets. The air grew cooler, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the plains. It was as if we were entering another realm, a place untouched by time, where legends were born and destinies forged. I found myself drifting back to the stories I had heard as a child, tales of hidden treasures and lost civilizations, of spirits that roamed the mountains and protected their secrets. It was easy to believe in such things here, where the line between reality and myth was as thin as a spider's silk. The night deepened, and the moon cast a silvery glow over the landscape, illuminating the path ahead. It was a path fraught with danger and uncertainty, but also with the promise of discovery and the thrill of the unknown. I felt a surge of anticipation, a yearning to uncover the mysteries that lay hidden within these ancient hills. As the hours passed, the landscape began to change, the dense forest giving way to open meadows bathed in moonlight. It was a sight of ethereal beauty, the grasses swaying gently in the breeze, a sea of silver under the night sky. In that moment, I felt a profound connection to this land, to the stories it held, and the people who had walked it before me. Our journey continued, the mountains ever closer, their presence a constant reminder of the challenges and adventures that lay ahead. We rode on, driven by a shared purpose, and the unspoken bond of those who have faced the unknown together. And as the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, I knew that this was just the beginning. The Wild West was a place of endless stories, of dreams and nightmares intertwined. And as a fake sheriff in this land of contradictions, I had found my calling, my place in its ever-evolving narrative. The sun's warmth touched the land, chasing away the chill of the night, awakening the world in a vibrant symphony of color and life. The mountains, now bathed in the golden light of morning, stood majestic and proud, their peaks reaching toward the heavens. As we paused to take in the view, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a moment of clarity in the midst of chaos. Here, in this vast and untamed land, I understood that it was not the badge or the title that defined a sheriff, but the courage to face the unknown, to protect and serve, even if that service was built on a foundation of illusion. With a deep breath, I turned to my companions, seeing the same resolve mirrored in their eyes. Together, we would continue our journey, writing our own chapter in the story of the Wild West. A story of courage and deception, of truth and illusion, where the lines between hero and villain blurred and faded like footprints in the desert sand. And so, we rode on, into the heart of the mountains, into the heart of the unknown, ready to face whatever lay ahead with courage, determination, and a touch of the Wild West's own brand of magic. The path we followed wound like a serpentine ribbon through the rugged terrain, a narrow trail etched into the earth by those who had come before us. The horses trod carefully, their hooves striking a rhythmic cadence against the rocky ground, as if echoing the heartbeat of the land itself. Each step forward was a testament to our resolve, a journey into the wild heart of the West, where legends were born and destinies rewritten. The air was crisp and carried the scent of pine and earth, mingling with the faint, sweet aroma of wildflowers that dotted the landscape like stars in a twilight sky. It was a land of contrasts, where beauty and danger coexisted in a delicate balance, and one had to tread with both reverence and caution. As we ventured deeper into the mountains, the sunlight played tricks on the eyes, casting long shadows that danced and flickered like specters in the corners of our vision. The mountains, with their ancient wisdom, seemed to whisper secrets in the rustling of leaves and the murmuring of streams that tumbled over smooth stones. In this theater of nature, we were but players, our roles uncertain, our lines unwritten. I felt the weight of the badge in my pocket, a symbol of authority that was both a shield and a shackle. It was a reminder of the duality of my existence, a facade I wore like a second skin, its authenticity as fragile as a spider's web glistening with morning dew. The sun climbed higher, casting its warm embrace over the landscape, and the world around us seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the unfolding of our tale. The mountains, endless and eternal, watched over us as silent sentinels, their ancient eyes having witnessed countless stories of triumph and tragedy. "Do you ever wonder," Sam spoke, breaking the silence, "what lies beyond these mountains, beyond the horizon we can't see?" His voice was a soft murmur, barely above a whisper, as if he dared not disturb the tranquility that enveloped us. I pondered his question, the unknown stretching out before us like a blank canvas, waiting for the brushstrokes of fate to paint our journey. "Every horizon holds a promise," I replied, my voice carrying a note of both uncertainty and hope. "A promise of adventure, of discovery, of finding something greater than ourselves." Sam nodded, a small, thoughtful smile playing on his lips. It was a smile that spoke of dreams and desires, of a heart unburdened by the weight of pretense. In that moment, I envied him, envied the simplicity of his longing for the unknown, untainted by the complexities of deception. As the day wore on, we encountered a stream, its waters a shimmering ribbon weaving through the landscape. We dismounted, allowing the horses to drink and rest, their sides heaving gently with the exertion of the journey. I crouched by the water's edge, watching as the current carried leaves and twigs downstream, a reminder of the passage of time and the impermanence of all things. My reflection stared back at me, distorted by the ripples, a visage both familiar and foreign. "What do you see?" Abigail asked, her voice carrying a note of curiosity. "Reflections," I replied, my gaze still fixed on the water. "Fragments of who I am, or perhaps who I pretend to be." Abigail crouched beside me, her presence a comforting anchor in the shifting sands of my identity. "Sometimes," she said softly, "we must become something we're not to discover who we truly are." Her words resonated with a truth I had long avoided, a truth that lay buried beneath layers of artifice and illusion. In the Wild West, where legends were born, perhaps there was room for reinvention, for redemption. As we resumed our journey, the terrain grew steeper, the path a challenging ascent that tested both our endurance and our resolve. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the mountains in hues of gold and crimson. Shadows lengthened, reaching out like fingers to grasp the fading light. The air grew cooler, a gentle breeze whispering through the trees, carrying with it the promise of evening. We pressed on, driven by an unspoken urgency, a sense that the heart of the mountains held secrets we were destined to uncover. And then, as the sun kissed the horizon, we stumbled upon it. A cabin nestled in a valley, its silhouette etched against the backdrop of the fading day. Smoke curled lazily from its chimney, a beacon of warmth and welcome in the encroaching twilight. We approached cautiously, the air thick with anticipation and the tantalizing scent of possibility. Here, in this secluded haven, lay answers to questions unasked, truths hidden within the folds of time. A figure emerged from the cabin, silhouetted against the warm glow of the interior. As we drew closer, details came into focus. A man, weathered and worn, his eyes like twin pools of wisdom and mystery. "Evening travelers," he greeted, his voice a rich baritone that resonated with the cadence of a storyteller. "What brings you to these parts?" His gaze lingered on me, and I felt an inexplicable connection, as if he could see beyond the veneer, beyond the facade I wore like a second skin. It was unnerving, yet strangely comforting, this sense of being seen. "We seek refuge," I replied, choosing my words carefully, aware of the weight they carried, "and perhaps answers." He nodded, a knowing smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "You're not the first to come seeking, nor the last. The mountains have a way of drawing souls in search of something." He gestured for us to dismount and enter, the warmth of the cabin a welcome embrace against the chill of the evening. Inside, the air was filled with the comforting aroma of stew simmering over a crackling fire, a promise of sustenance and solace. As we settled around the hearth, the man introduced himself as Elias, a keeper of stories, a guardian of secrets whispered by the wind and etched into the stones of the mountains. "You wear the badge of a sheriff," he observed, his gaze steady and unyielding. "Yet, I sense a hesitation, a reluctance in your bearing." His words hung in the air, a challenge and an invitation intertwined, and I found myself at a crossroads, the weight of pretense pressing heavily upon me. "Perhaps," I began, my voice steady, yet laced with vulnerability. "I am a sheriff in name alone, a guardian of illusions." Elias chuckled, a sound rich with understanding and empathy. "In this land where myths and realities coexist, perhaps the greatest courage lies not in the badge, but in the heart that wears it." His words were a balm, soothing the turmoil within, and as the fire crackled and the night deepened, I felt a shift, a subtle realignment of self, where truth and illusion danced in harmony, and the journey continued, not just across the landscape, but within the soul. The stars overhead twinkled like ancient sentinels, bearing witness to countless stories that had unfolded beneath their gaze. The fire's warmth wrapped around us, a gentle reminder that even in the vastness of the wilderness, there was solace to be found in the simplest of gatherings. Elias's eyes reflected the flickering flames, a mirror to the wisdom of ages past. "Every path we tread," he mused, "is but a thread in the tapestry of time. Each choice, each moment of doubt, weaves a pattern unique to our soul." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle into the corners of my mind, kindling new understandings. The badge I wore, once a symbol of authority, had transformed into a mere accessory, overshadowed by the greater quest for authenticity. "The mountains," Elias continued, gesturing towards the silhouetted peaks, "have stood for eons, yet they change with each season. So do we, shaped by the winds of experience and the rains of introspection." In that quiet moment, surrounded by the whispers of the earth and the gentle hum of the night, I realized that the journey was not solely about destinations, but about the metamorphosis that occurred along the way. The landscapes traversed were not merely physical, but also internal, terrains of the heart and mind. As dawn began its subtle approach, painting the horizon with hues of promise, I understood that my role as a sheriff, as a seeker, was not defined by the badge or the authority it represented, but by the courage to embrace the unknown, the fortitude to challenge illusions, and the grace to accept the truth. Together, we extinguished the dying embers of the fire, a ritual of closure and renewal. And as we prepared to part ways, Elias placed a hand on my shoulder, a gesture of camaraderie and shared journey. "Remember," he said softly, "the road is long, but it is yours to walk. Write your own story, with heart, with courage, and with love." With those words echoing in the dawn, I set forth, the path ahead winding into the unknown, yet illuminated by the newfound light within. The mountains stood steadfast, the stars faded into day, and I walked on, a guardian not of illusions, but of dreams yet to be realized. As I ventured onward, the morning air carried with it a symphony of awakening life, each note a testament to the world's endless cycle of beginnings and endings. The crisp breeze whispered secrets of the land, and I listened, open to the lessons it had to impart. The town lay behind me, a mosaic of memories and trials that had shaped me. Its people, its challenges, and its mysteries had woven themselves into the fabric of my being. No longer was I simply a keeper of law, but a keeper of stories, of truths unearthed and burdens shared. Each step forward was a step away from the shadows of doubt and fear, and towards a horizon brimming with possibility. I thought of the faces I had encountered, each one a story in its own right, and felt a profound connection to the tapestry of life that bound us all together. The sun climbed higher, casting its golden light upon the path, warming the earth and my resolve. As I followed the winding trail, I realized that though the journey was solitary, I was never truly alone. The land, with its silent wisdom and enduring strength, was my companion. In the distance, the landscape stretched wide and welcoming, a reminder that every end is but a prelude to a new chapter. With heart open and spirit undaunted, I embraced the road ahead, ready to inscribe my tale upon the vast, uncharted canvas of tomorrow. And so, with the sky as my witness and the earth as my guide, I journeyed forward, a wanderer of dreams, a seeker of truths, a weaver of destinies, ever onward, ever true. The wind, gentle yet insistent, whispered secrets of distant lands and untold adventures, beckoning me to listen closely. It carried with it the scent of wildflowers and ancient forests, each fragrance a reminder of the beauty that lay in the unknown. As the path unfurled before me like a timeless scroll, I felt the pulse of the world beneath my feet, a steady rhythm that mirrored my own heartbeat. The birds sang a chorus of encouragement, their melodies weaving through the air like threads of a forgotten song, guiding me with their timeless wisdom. I paused for a moment, closing my eyes to absorb the symphony of life that surrounded me. It was in these moments of stillness that I found clarity, a profound understanding that every step taken was an act of creation, a brushstroke on the canvas of my journey. As the day waned and the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of amber and rose, I found solace in the twilight. The stars began to emerge, one by one, like old friends returning to share their light. Each star held a promise, a beacon of hope that illuminated the path I had chosen. With gratitude in my heart and dreams in my eyes, I continued onward, knowing that the road would twist and turn, rise and fall, but that it would always lead me to where I was meant to be. The journey was both the destination and the reward, a testament to the courage it takes to embrace the unknown. And so, beneath a sky woven with constellations, I walked forward into the night, my spirit a flame that danced with the promise of tomorrow, ever seeking, ever growing, ever alive. The gentle whispers of the night wind carried with them the stories of those who had traveled before me, their tales etched into the very fabric of the universe. Each footstep echoed with the wisdom of ages, grounding me in the present while urging me to dream beyond the horizon. The moon, a silent guardian, cast its silver glow upon the earth, illuminating the path with a soft, ethereal light. It was a reminder that even in darkness, there is beauty to be found, a quiet elegance that speaks to the soul. I paused for a moment, taking in the vastness of the sky, feeling both infinitesimally small and infinitely connected to everything around me. As I resumed my journey, the sound of my footsteps harmonized with the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant call of a night bird. The world was alive with a symphony that played only for those who dared to listen, those who understood that life was a melody composed of both joy and sorrow, triumph and struggle. In the distance, I could see the faint outline of the mountains, steadfast and eternal, a reminder of the strength that lies within us all. They stood as silent witnesses to the passage of time, their peaks reaching ever upward, touching the heavens themselves. I knew that my journey was far from over, that many paths lay before me, waiting to be explored. But in that moment, standing under the vast expanse of the night sky, I felt a profound sense of peace. I was exactly where I needed to be, living each moment with intention and grace. And so, with a heart full of wonder and a spirit unburdened by fear, I continued onward into the embrace of the night, knowing that the dawn would bring new adventures, new challenges, and new joys. For in the grand tapestry of life, it is not the destination that defines us, but the journey itself, a journey that is ever unfolding, ever beautiful, ever ours. As I took those first steps into the enveloping shadows, the stars above seemed to shimmer with a knowing brilliance, as if each one carried a fragment of the stories yet to be lived. They were silent companions, whispering secrets of the universe, weaving threads of connection between the earth and sky, the past and future. The gentle rustling of leaves in the night breeze sang a lullaby of continuity, reminding me that every ending is merely a beginning cloaked in disguise. The air was cool and filled with the scent of possibilities, urging me forward with a tender insistence. I turned back for a moment, casting a final glance at the horizon, where the first hint of dawn was beginning to blush. It was there that I understood the essence of my journey, that life is a cycle, ever renewing, ever evolving. Each step I took was a dance with eternity, a promise to embrace the unknown with open arms. And so, with the mountains as my guardians and the stars as my guide, I stepped boldly into the future, carrying with me the lessons of the past and the hopes for the morrow. The path ahead was untrodden, yet it was mine to carve. With each breath, I was reminded that I was part of something vast and wondrous, a melody that would continue to play long after my own notes had faded. In that realization, I found solace and strength, knowing that my story was just one of many in the grand symphony of existence, each note resonating with purpose and meaning. And as the night softly surrendered to the dawn, I walked on, leaving footprints in the sands of time, etching my own song into the heart of the world. The gentle embrace of morning light began to weave through the tapestry of night, painting the sky with hues of lavender and gold. It was a moment suspended in time, where the world seemed to hold its breath in reverence to the new day. I paused, feeling the earth beneath my feet, solid yet ever-changing, much like the life I had come to know. In that serene silence, I understood that every journey, no matter how solitary it may feel, is an intricate part of the greater whole. Each step I had taken was a thread in the vast fabric of existence, intertwining with countless others, creating patterns unseen yet profoundly felt. As the sun slowly crested the horizon, casting its warmth upon the land, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The challenges I had faced, the joys I had embraced, and the lessons I had learned were all gifts, shaping me into who I was meant to be. They were the brushstrokes of my story, vibrant and varied, adding depth to the canvas of my life. With gratitude in my heart, I turned my gaze forward, ready to greet whatever lay ahead. The future was a vast, open field, awaiting the seeds of dreams yet to be sown. And though the path would surely twist and turn, I was no longer afraid of its mysteries. For in every dawn, I saw the promise of new beginnings, in every sunset, the grace of completion. And so, with a spirit renewed and a heart full of hope, I continued onward, knowing that the journey was the destination, and that the beauty of life lay not just in its grand moments, but in the quiet, unspoken ones too. As I walked, the melody of my life played on, a gentle harmony in tune with the world, a whisper of eternity echoing through the winds. And in that symphony, I found my place, ever evolving, ever at peace. The journey stretched before me, a tapestry woven with threads of dreams and whispers of the unknown. Each step resonated with the rhythm of time, an unending cadence that promised both challenge and revelation. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the landscape, and as shadows lengthened, I felt the gentle embrace of the night, a reminder that even in darkness there was beauty to be found. Stars began to punctuate the sky, tiny beacons of light guiding my path. They reminded me of the countless souls who had walked before me, each carving their own path through the wilderness of existence. I was but a note in the grand symphony of life, yet my melody mattered, adding a unique timbre to the universal chorus. As I journeyed further, I encountered fellow travelers, each with their own stories etched into the lines of their faces. We shared laughter and tears, our voices mingling in the cool night air. These connections, fleeting yet profound, were the threads that bound us, creating a tapestry of human experience rich in color and texture. Together, we marveled at the beauty of the world around us, the simple wonders that often went unnoticed. A bloom pushing through cracked earth, the gentle murmur of a stream, the whisper of leaves dancing in the breeze. In those shared moments, I understood that life was not a solitary pursuit, but a communal dance, a celebration of shared hopes and dreams. And as the night deepened, a quiet sense of belonging enveloped me, a knowledge that I was part of something greater, a vast, interconnected web of life. With the dawn came renewal, the promise of another day, a blank canvas upon which to paint my dreams. And as the first light kissed the earth, I took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the world beneath my feet. I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, to weave my story into the ever-expanding tapestry of existence. The path was infinite, winding through valleys of discovery and peaks of revelation. And as I walked, I carried with me the knowledge that every step, every moment was a gift, a piece of eternity in my hands. This was my journey, my story, ever unfolding, ever beautiful. And in the quiet of the morning, I smiled, for I knew that in this vast, wondrous